Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to this Campaign 101 webinar. We're going to go over some of the basics for organizing an effective campaign, and the emphasis is on basics. That's why we call it Campaign 101, to help candidates represent the Green Party's 10 key values and 4 pillars as they run for office, win, build the party, and serve their communities as elected officials. This webinar is sponsored by the Coordinated Campaign Committee of the Green Party of the United States, whose job is to partner with state parties to encourage, support, and help promote Green Party candidates. My name is Scott Genauer. I serve on the Coordinated Campaign Committee, and I hail from Washington State. We have a last minute change. Originally, I was going to be assisted today by Robin Lorraine from Michigan, but due to a last minute emergency, Robin is not with us today. Although I do see Sherry from Michigan, maybe she could give us an update on Robin. That being said, we'll still plug forward and might muddle through in a few places where I'm covering for what Robin had prepared for. But we love speaking to candidates. We love talking campaigns. So I think we're going to do very well. Holly Hart from Iowa and Starling Rankin are also with me. Holly is going to be managing the sharing of the presentation deck that we go through. Starling is in the background, just making sure that the technical things are running. And if I didn't mention this already, Holly's from Iowa and Starling is also from Washington State along with me. This is a live webinar. We're live streaming and it's also recorded so it can be viewed later. Everybody in the audience, you should be muted except during question times or introduction times that are coming up very soon. You can raise your hand or use the chat feature. I think Holly or Starling will both keep an eye on chats. I might not be able to follow the chats as much as I wish to because we have so many things going on. And please, I think we're going to be small enough that if people want to interject or as we go through different parts of the presentation deck, I think we can open up for questions pretty easily. In fact, my goal is to have the candidates on the call today do at least as much of the talking as I am. Finally, the Coordinated Campaign Committee of the Green Party, we rely on financial contributions from individuals who wish to see the party grow stronger. We encourage everyone to become monthly sustainers. And if you go to gp.org, there's a donation link for further information on that. So without further ado, Holly, can we get to the presentation deck? Okay, great. Thank you, Holly. And maybe there's a way to do this, the slideshow so we don't see, so we have the full screen effect. That's me. I think it's if you click slideshow. So right now we see the, yeah, maybe. Okay, maybe that's.
Is that what you mean here?
I think so, yeah, it just sort of, it fills up the entire screen. Maybe it's slideshow. Do you see where it says slideshow?
No, because it's, oh, here we go, okay.
I think that just puts everything in full screen. Yeah, exactly, thank you. So yeah, if you could go on to the next page, it'll be the agenda. And let's see. I wonder if there's a way for my box to be visible. Maybe not, but that's fine. You all know what I look like. The agenda for today, we're going to go through some introductions and specifically we want to talk about, why we're running for office. We're going to go through some discussion on setting goals for the campaign, assessing the resources, your campaign resources, And I put the SWOT analysis is on here because it's something we at the Coordinated Campaign Committee really emphasize a campaign to undertake at the beginning of the campaign. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Budget development, putting together a campaign team, and planning events. And then finally, each of you who is a candidate will ask you to give us some of your next step to-dos in your campaign, the things that you're planning to do following this webinar. If we could go on to the next slide. Okay, so why you're running, there's many different reasons that candidates run. First, you could run to win, ballot access, building the Green Party, improve the community. When I ran for office, basically all of these were part of the reason that I ran. So why don't we now open up the discussion to introductions of all the participants here, and we especially want to hear from those of you who are candidates. So perhaps we can stop the screen share and open up to the view. And I don't know everybody here. This is great. I'm looking forward to meeting some of you. And I'm just going to go in the order that I see you, which might be different from how you see yourselves. I see Jesse Silva, who is next to me in my Hollywood Squares box. Jesse, welcome. Can you give us an introduction and tell us if you're a candidate or if you're supporting a candidate and what you hope to get out of the webinar, and just some information so we know you a little better.
All right, no problem. Can you hear me first of all?
We hear you fine, thank you.
Awesome, great. Well, yeah, my name is Jesse. I reside in Southern California in the Riverside area. This past election season, I ran for city council in my city. It was my first time ever getting involved in any type of political movement. And it was just because I lived in the city, had a lot of love and admiration for where I grew up in, and I didn't like the direction that the city was taking it. And I've always aligned myself with like the Green Party as far as like the grassroots democracy, social justice, and so I've always been cited as more sustainability wise, and I've always tried to, like, the whole focus core of my campaign was keeping our roots as a city. Because in a little backstory on Jurupa Valley is like the youngest city in California. So it's a lot of rural equestrian lifestyle. And while we were getting gentrification in our city, which I've always said gentrification isn't a bad thing, but it's absolutely inexcusable when you attempt to gentrify a location without keeping the essence and the roots of the hometown. So I went full forth and without any type of experience, and I garnered a lot of organic support. I did a lot of rallies, and I went against seasoned, politicians that were already part of the city, and I ended up closing the campaign with like over 300 votes, and my name pretty out there, and I'm now just a community advocate for the city here. And anything as small as like, can you help me with as far as like permits, or anything as far as this legal or anything, or people are always coming to me. So I'm just trying to grow my spectrum of knowledge so I can better assist my community. And for the next upcoming election, hopefully I can secure that win and help in a grander scale.
So when will the election be?
So it's going to be, since there was the past one was this last year, it's going to be in 4 years, and I'll be 20. Yeah, I'll be 29 in 4 years. So yeah.
So so you ran last year and you're planning to run again in 4 years.
Correct.
That's terrific. We're really happy to see you, and hope look forward to helping you out some. Thank you, Jesse.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Doug Larry, you are next.
Oh, good night, Scott.
I know Doug pretty well. Are you running for office now?
I'm currently in the role of researching who might be good candidates. I'm an available candidate, but I'm not the best candidate. And when I'm a candidate, it tends to hurt my party more than help it, because I
don't believe that.
Well, because I'm the back office guy. I'm the guy who provides the voter list, the walk list, the email assistance. And if I'm not doing that, and if I'm not paying attention to being treasurer of my town committee,
Mhm.
Everybody's running around like a candidate. Nobody's running the shop. So
True.
I have run 6 times. I have served for 4 years in one of those roles, and I might run again. But
Okay.
often I run because I think it's important for that job to have a green on the ballot for.
Right.
I've run for Registrar of Voters, Board of Ed, and Board of Finance. And those are all important roles in my town without being the baby kissing, glad handing town council role. I'm much more nuts and bolts, make it happen, process oriented geek.
Got
So
it.
those are the roles I run for.
Okay, good. And for everybody's information, Doug is from Connecticut.
Correct.
And we on the Coordinated Campaign Committee, of course, we support candidates, but we also support people who support candidates, people who are interested in supporting candidates.
I'll be a candidate if we don't find better. But
Okay.
I am definitely looking for others at this time and checking out our current. We have 6 people from this town elected at this moment, which is, I think, close to the national peak for a single town.
Right.
So we're checking with everyone who's currently serving and seeing who wants to do it again and who needs a break and who else might fill in.
Okay.
We've had some good responses, but it's tough to get youth involved, and that's what we're looking for most.
Yeah. Thank you, Doug. Christopher Lazinski. Let's hear from you next.
Hi, Christopher Lazinski here. I run greenmaps.us. In a moment, I'll put the link in the chat. I also put up websites for candidates. Thank you.
But you're not a candidate yourself.
I'm not a candidate, correct? I like this, like Gary, I support candidates.
Right. Great. Okay, good. And then Sherry Wells in Michigan.
Yeah, I'm currently the Michigan Elections Coordinator, which I describe as I'm in the pilot seat, but John Anthony LaPietra, who's been their elections coordinator for, about a century, is in the instructor's seat, which is just, we've got 2 of us basically.
Mm-hmm.
I've run for statewide Board of Elections 3 times since 2014 and on. State rep once for Green, this was for Green Party, and U of M Board of Governors this past time. Prior to joining the Green Party, and part of the reason I did is I ran for local office, used and abused by the D party, but I did get elected as a Charter Revision Commission locally. What I'm trying to do most is getting people to attend a city council meeting or county commission and school board meetings to then get involved, apply for some of the boards, committees, and commissions that citizens can support those with, and basically get their foot in the door. I found a clip art that has a green foot. So I'm starting to push that one around. Free clip art. And that's what I'm trying to do. Besides, once you run for anything, you get kind of bit by the bug, Jesse, right? Someone said that about me when my first election and I didn't
Absolutely.
win. And he said something about next time. I looked like he was nuts, but there was a next time and a next time and a next time. But even though I tell people I'm younger than Bernie, it's not by much. And so Robin called. The Michigan Green Party stays on the ballot because we have people running for the election boards, the university boards of governors. There's 3 universities in Michigan, and the State Board of Education. And that's kept us on the ballot. And Robin called the 3 of us who got triple the number of votes we needed to stay on the ballot, the Green Golden Girls.
Right. Thank you, Sherry. And for everybody, the Robin that Sherry's talking about is the Robin who was to co-facilitate with me today, and she had an emergency. Sherry, do you know anything more about how Robin is? I know it's not too serious, but she did have a fall and she was unable to be with us tonight. Do you have any updated information?
She fell?
Yeah, that's all I
Oh,
heard. It was
wow.
just
Because
just in
she
the
is a
last couple
foster,
of hours.
well, she's a foster parent too. And
Right.
she's a nurse, and nurses are very bad patients.
She said that her nurse was one of her students, so I think she's in good hands.
Well,
But
yeah, one would hope. Yeah, I normally
Okay.
just know what's going on with Robin if I see her emails, and she'll email like respond to about 10 emails at a time, and then we don't see or hear from her for a few days. Did she help you with this slideshow?
Yeah, we were slated to do this together, and
But she helped you put it together.
yes, exactly.
Good to know. All right, I was
I
hoping
thought you.
I was hoping that she'd be here so I could find out what she was doing when she was running.
I was hoping she would be here too.
Yeah, but
That's
I
okay.
don't know. One of the problems, some of the things that are very important to me as our elections coordinator is that people run like lone rangers. We are a party. People run for ego reasons. I don't buy that. People
Okay.
run and don't put Green Party on their stuff. They wouldn't have been nominated if they didn't do. Douglas is just and those are my big pet peeves, but you need to put things in a more positive way.
Absolutely, we're all about that. Hey,
So,
and before we get to, thank you, Sherry. I want to move on.
Terry,
Let's see. Cassandra. I'm going to skip all the CCC people for now, and then I'll come back to any of the CCC people who want to say something that perhaps I've missed. But I see one more person that I haven't gotten to, and that's Terry Beitel. Is that?
Hi.
Hi, Terry.
Hi, I'm
Terry.
I'm Terry Beitel from Bucks County, Pennsylvania. I'm the chair of the Bucks County side of the Bucks County Montgomery Green Party. I'm just here to educate myself and get some information.
Okay, are you not a candidate right now?
I am not a candidate. I'm just educating myself.
Right, good. Well, we need our candidates need plenty of people like you who are educated in what the candidates are going through. So, welcome.
are you going to run, Terry?
Maybe before I pass, but not today.
Holly, Starlene, Cassandra, who are with me in the coordinated campaign committee, do either of you have something to add about the committee or about the your own campaign experience or anything else at this juncture?
I'll just introduce myself quickly. Cassandra Lems, Long Island, New York. I've run for office 4 times and I've been a campaign manager for other Greens twice. And running for office is is so exhausting. I think I'd rather be the campaign manager now, but I'm far from, even with all that experience, I still have a lot more to learn. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Cassandra.
Holly Stack.
Holly?
I've run for office once. It was a while ago, but I worked on a number of campaigns, worked as campaign treasurer and a bunch of other things. I was fortunate to have been able to take a campaign school by one of the first progressives who ran a campaign school. And some of you know the name of Karen Cubby, a socialist who ran years ago, and she was one of the first people to register green when that was possible. And so we've had her back from time to time to do webinars as well. So I got involved in this and have enjoyed working here. And I'm also, and I want to just note, I'm going to put in this chat, there's some information. There's information on our coordinated campaign committee page. If you want to learn more about what we do, we have things like a campaign manual, our webinars, things like that. You can find more information. There's the elections database, gpelections.org, and that gives you anything you want to know about who was running and the office holders for research purposes. And then that address, ccc@gp.org. If you have questions, you can write, and that will come to 1 or 2 of us. So that's all I have to say. And thank you all for joining us.
And Starlene, any words from you?
Well, I ran for city council when I lived in Ames, Iowa, 1999. I did pretty well. I got 20% of the vote against a longtime incumbent, and didn't have to spend much money. I was doing a live public access show at the time with my partner, and so I was on TV every week. So people kind of knew me. I was kind of like a local celebrity. I get asked for my autograph all the time. So people knew me through the show, and we certainly talked about the campaign on the show. So I didn't really have to campaign much, but that was fun. I really enjoyed it. I'd like to do it again, possibly. I think that's it. I live in Washington now, in Kent, Washington, being close to my grandson, and I worked for the Oregon Green Party and the Washington Green Party as a part-time organizer. That's it.
Okay, and then I'll just add, I've run for office sometimes. I ran it for in Massachusetts when I was affiliated with the Green Rainbow Party. It's one of the most positive experiences of my life. It's on my resume. It's on my LinkedIn profile. One reason I'm proud to be on the coordinated campaign committee is that I like talking candidates and encouraging people to run. It can be a very positive experience. It can be very tiring, all the things that we've heard. But it is, if we're going to build an opposition party in this country, then it's something we have to do. Holly, if we can go back to the presentation deck, we'll go through some of the speaking materials.
I'm trying to do that, but what is odd is my screen has gone completely, let me see here.
All right.
Hang on a moment. I'm going to exit the full screen here. Okay, now, are we back on, for some strange reason? Hang on here. Okay, I'm going to share the screen again. Hopefully that's
okay.
Okay. Okay, for some bizarre reason. Okay, does that
Okay,
look
good.
better?
No, it's good. Yep, no, we're good. So yeah, let's just go to the next page. And these were the page before. No, the next page, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is just a chart with some information. The Coordinated Campaign Committee every year runs a survey at the end of the year this is the survey results from 2022, where we asked candidates what the purpose was of the campaign. And these were the different answers, the blue bars being the main reason, very much so, the red and the others accordingly. So all the things we've heard about here, winning and serving, ballot access, building a slate, expanding debate, education on issues. These are the reasons that were cited by candidates last year. So information like this is one of the things that we at the Coordinated Campaign Committee take. And for those of you who are running for office this year, who are on our list, you'll get this survey at the end of the year and you can be part of this year's answer. The next slides, please, Holly. Okay, so then as you launch a campaign, one of the first things you need to do is to determine what your goals are, and try to drill down into the goals. It's not just winning, and these next few pages will help you to do that. We use the term SMART in terms of a SMART goal, and that's SMART. S stands for specific, measurable, attainable, results-oriented, and time-bound. If you can go to the next slide, Holly, we'll talk a little bit more about what these things mean. So for example, if the goal is building the Green Party, you can conceptualize this in these ways. The specific is, okay, we want to grow membership and infrastructure. The measurable, we want this many new members, this many new chapters, this many new donors. Attainable, how does it compare with the current status? Maybe this is doubling the numbers, maybe this is increasing by 25%, but how does it compare to the current state? And then for the R, the purpose of building a base of power that can compete in future elections. And then T, the timetable by December 31st. So this is, if you have a goal, try to analyze each of your goals in terms of this framework, SMART. And that will help you to better define what your campaign is going to be doing. The specific, measurable, attainable, results, what was the R? And then the T, the timetable. Yeah, results oriented, okay. Okay, go on to the next slide. And so, for example, if your goal is winning office, it's specifically the seat, the county commissioner, measurable, achieve 50% plus one of the votes. I'm not going to read everything here, but this is, basically how you map out the goal for the attainability, results oriented, and the timetable. The next page. So in a few moments, I'm going to ask the candidates who are on this webinar to talk about some of the goals that they have for their campaign. This is, again, just a little bit more extrapolation of what, depending on the goal, if it's growing the party or if it's winning a seat, how these things are mapped out. But these drive your actions. These define what your campaign will do. Can we leave the screen share right now and go back to the gallery, Holly? Thank you. And let's see, we have Jesse, you might be the only candidate on our webinar right now. And I'm afraid that that means that you and I are going to be doing most of the talking and other people are going to be helping you out here. So
I'm all for it, I appreciate it.
Okay, good. So when you ran, in terms of the goal setting, how will you compare the campaign that you ran last year with the campaign that you will run in 4 years in terms of how you conceptualize the goals?
Oh, well, from last year, I garnered a lot of experience, firsthand experience, from as far as fundraising to volunteers to even having my treasurer. And I'm a very methodical type of person that I like to think from the back end to the starting point. And when I was doing it, I was literally just running into, head first into the water. So now I definitely have a lot of valuable experience just from my first time running that I can apply into my next endeavor. And one thing that I would like to focus is that I still needed a bit of help is getting the funds for my campaign, which is always, the root of everything, is trying to get, that money dollar backing. Yeah, because other than that, I was very prominent within the community. A lot of people have known me, and a lot of people have seen me as like the leader to go to, and I've always called myself a humanitarian at first. So they always knew that my campaign was, something that was sincere and authentic. So, but it was just the money aspect that I feel that I felt really short on.
I'm glad you brought that. I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of candidates actually don't like talking about money, but we need to. So that could be a goal. I mean, so I'll ask you, for your next race, how much money do you? What's your goal for fundraising?
So the incumbent and the other ones that are running as well, they got around 80,000 cumulative to the whole thing. So I would at least like, yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would at least like to get somewhere around there, just so I can be, at least throw in my hat into it. Because man, it's really nice. Every individual that I did talk to and I spent the time really supported me, but getting that extra push with the finances, it really does make the difference.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So good. So this is excellent. So getting back to the SMART analysis. Specific, we'll say 80,000. How would you go from there? Would you start your fundraising now? Would you start your fundraising next year? Would you have a goal for, okay, this year I want to have this much in the bank, because some candidates do. They have a chest that they just sort of sit on and build until they start spending it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I want to start fundraising as soon as, I want to say, about 2 years in. I am still growing a lot more connections and making really good friends with every like business in the community. So later on I can ask for their support. But yeah, absolutely, start the earlier the better, I would say, the name of the game. And I was just, when I was running, I was doing it day on day and just trying to plot ahead. But yeah, absolutely, I would say at least 2 years from now, and then absolutely utilize the local businesses to garner more support.
Okay. So can businesses in California donate money to a campaign?
Correct, yes.
Okay. All right, good. I think that's an excellent goal. And
Yeah,
it's
because
gonna
in Harupa Valley, they're all mom and pop shops. It's a community of communities. So it was from Mayor Loma to Van Buren to and so it's a lot of it's a lot of that old kind of southern feel to it. And that's what I know with the Green Party we have, sometimes we don't get like real big, like we're against the support of the corporations, which I'm totally about grassroots movements. But
right.
like the funds that I got were all from family members, friends, from old school teachers and everything. And I just got demolished by the big corporations that just donated, like, my $100 was nothing to the $2,000,
Right.
So I would definitely, yeah.
But I mean, the strength we have is community engagement, and it sounds like you're getting off on a really good footing with that. No, when it comes to fundraising, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, every state is different. So it's really important to know what the state laws are regarding that, like who can contribute, who cannot, and because they're all a little bit different. And we're not on the CCC qualified to give that level of advice, other than make sure you look at your state's website and understand what the deal is. Okay. Does anybody else on the floor have any thoughts on this section of goals and setting goals? Holly?
I just wanted to mention something, because I ran into this with my campaign for lieutenant governor. Obviously, we were not going to win, but we did have a goal. But I've run into this on my campaign and on many others. In some countries, they'll put up a slate and they do what is called stand for election. So you're not really going to run, but you want somebody in that position, so people on the ballot will see, the Green Party name on the ballot. And there's a valid argument to do that. But what I've discovered, and why I think in this country, especially when you run, people expect you to run and be serious about it. And especially if you're running for city council, even if it's a long shot, you're going to try to really win. And they expect you to campaign. They expect, when they send you, my first questionnaire was from the National Gun Lobby. I probably failed their questionnaire, but it was that they expect you to be serious about it. Even if you're not going to win, Congress, you still have a practical goals, and people will really respect that a great deal more. I just want to say that again, there's arguments both ways, but my experience, I've run into time and time again here, people do expect you to, they say, well, don't gripe about not being on the ballot or unfair laws when you're not really serious. So I just want to throw that in there.
Yeah, no, there definitely are like public goals and then internal goals. I mean, you can certainly have internal goals with your campaign team, with your local party, and things that, refer to, other things. And publicly, the goal is to win. So, goals that you would have internal are not necessarily goals that you share with the public. Sherry, I saw your hand up earlier. Do you have a question or a comment to add? Maybe not.
Well, what Aaron Fox had me do when I was running for state rep, and I have been the person emailing 2 counties worth of greens, which right now the list is 260 people. I'd been doing that for a few years, and so I approached it with the idea that I want to talk to you. You've seen my name at the bottom of all of these messages about different activities that are available, not necessarily just Green Party, but progressive. And so I looked at it as looking forward to it. And I had people I'd never gotten any emails back from, but this one man donated to my campaign. And then I didn't need Aaron to tell me to send a thank you card to every one of them. And then the next time he donated even more than the first time. And one person we didn't have an email address for, and but he lived in a very, very nice area, and Aaron had me drive up there and knock on his door. We had a great conversation, and he donated to me. And I enjoyed that. And that's the phone calls that a lot of people don't like making. But one of my other things as elections coordinator, because some of our people say, I didn't get any support from the party. What have you been doing to try to build the party before you started running? And there's things that we can do. I enjoyed that. I think I was able to raise a couple $1,000 doing that.
Yeah.
Outside of family and friends.
Right. See, I can say your second time will be easier than the first time. The second time I ran, I raised more money than the first time I ran. So that'll, it does get easier. It does get easier. So, you're giving yourself a good goal, and we'll look forward to following you and helping you to achieve that. Let's go on to the next. Holly, I'm probably pushing too many buttons here by saying, let's go back to the deck. Let's see if we can.
No, that's okay. Let me see here. I'm gonna.
Okay.
I just have to get
my iPad didn't allow me to share the screen as readily as I thought. So.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. So we can go on to the next page. There's a way to, down there. Okay, good. Okay, so now your resources, the different resources that you have that are going to help you achieve your goals are obviously there are the financial. Oh, I'll go back. That's okay. There's the financial, both the money you have in the bank. Okay. The money you have in the bank, as well as in-kind, things of in-kind value, like maybe somebody lets you have some office space, or somebody, donates something that has value. These all are considered part of financial resources. And we'll talk a little bit later about getting a treasurer and making sure that these things are recorded. Human, the people who are involved, staff and volunteers, and of course yourself, you are the most critical, you as the candidate are the most critical resource of the campaign. Infrastructure includes the databases that you use, the media list that you use, the technology that you use, your campaign organization itself, the things that you marshal to get the job done constitute the infrastructure that you have. And relationships in your community, with the party, with allied groups, with friends and family and neighbors, and those things. The coordinated campaign committee is a resource. We cannot do everything for each and every campaign, but we certainly do what we can to provide different levels of support. And then your SWOT analysis we're going to come to in a moment will be how you sort of picture the different resources at your disposal. Can we go on to the next page, Holly? Thank you. So back to us on the coordinated campaign committee. Here's some of the things that we do for our candidates. We have groups.io is a network of emailing that we do. So we invite all candidates, current year candidates especially, to send an email to this address to subscribe to it. We send notices out. We use it to discuss campaign things we don't really use it to discuss platforms and to debate different issues of, different components of platform. We use it mostly for network support, to let candidates know what's out there and to help candidates network. Webinars, such as what we're doing today, we do them every month. Last month, we had a webinar on treasurers, tips for treasurers to support campaigns. Several months ago, we talked to, we called it Green Candidate Pride. We spoke to people who had won for office and won at the city council level. So these webinars are all archived on the website that Holly told you about earlier, on the Coordinated Campaign Committee page of the Green Party website. You'll see links to those. The ANM is our annual national meeting with the Green Party. And this year, for the second year in a row, we will run what we call a candidate cafe, where candidates who are attending the meeting can get together and network and huddle. And we're going to put together different programs during these cafe sessions that are half informal, half structured. Just imagine a cafe where you can come together with other candidates, virtually have a cup of virtual coffee, and come and go as you please to shoot the breeze. Also, very importantly, the Coordinated Campaign Committee offers financial grants. That's money. That is, there'll be an application process. The parameters of it are still being worked out. We just concluded some internal Coordinated Campaign Committee elections, so we're becoming organized to support candidates by offering financial grants. So there will be more information coming up on that. We do very much want to support candidates running for local office, in addition to candidates who are running for higher office. And many of these elections occur earlier in the year than November. So to the degree that we can, we want to be in a position to give candidates money that will help them. We can go on to the next page, Holly. And here's the SWOT analysis. This is what the Coordinated Campaign Committee really believes strongly. Candidates, as they are getting going, should take a step back and assess the resources that they have, the resources that we talked about earlier, the goals that we talked about earlier, and just 4 boxes up on a chart like this that identify campaign strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, because there's probably a number of things that can be filled in each of these boxes. The strengths, obviously, the things that we do well, the things that we know we will do well at, either our positions or our organization or the knowledge we have of the community, anything that we are already strong at. We want to play to those strengths as much as possible, obviously, as we're setting events and campaign activities. Opportunities would refer to things that we could do better, or things that our opponents don't do very well that we can capitalize on. So we're always thinking of our competition as well as our strengths. So if our competitor has something has happened that has hurt our competitor, well, we can use it to our advantage. Social trends, political trends, people are more and more upset with the 2-party system, with the duopoly, and this continues to be an opportunity that we can, if we define ourselves properly as an alternative to that, this is an opportunity. Upcoming events that we can benefit from, new sources of funding, what should we go after? Weaknesses are, okay, where we need to improve. Weaknesses could also be what we can anticipate our competitors to try to capitalize on. So we need to address these weaknesses as well as we can address our strengths. And threats, things that are on the horizon might come about to hurt us. So we need to be prepared and have a strategy to address these. So when we look at our resources, our people, our infrastructure, our money, all the things that help us in achieving our goals, if you, with your campaign team, put together a SWOT analysis at the beginning of your campaign, or if you are somebody who's helping a candidate, you can present this to the candidate in their campaign. And this will help them get grounding as they launch. We also, as back to the survey that the Coordinated Campaign Committee runs every year at the end of the year, we ask our candidates to share the SWOT analyses that they did themselves. And of course, that helps all of us learn what our candidates are going through, and it helps our committee also improve so that we can better organize ourselves to support the candidates. I'd like to throw it back to the gallery view, Holly, if we can exit the slideshow and see if there's any thoughts or comments or questions, especially from the candidates or people supporting candidates on this last section about the resources. Anything? Anybody say something?
The big thing is visibility.
Mm-hmm.
What the Green Party is, what it's about. I even had someone in November ask me, is it just the environment?
Yeah.
And I mentioned just 4, which is one more than they say most people can handle. I don't go through the whole 10, and the other 6 are subsumed under those 4 anyway.
Yeah.
But it's the environment, it's social justice, is the green in your pocket, it's grass is green, roots democracy, and nonviolence. And when I was running for the State Board of Education, I said nonviolence from bullying on up. And so I tied it into my campaign. But visibility is such a big problem. People don't know that we even exist. We need to be out there. And there's so many opportunities, from cleaning parks to some of these coalitions, which I think was on one of your slides already.
Yeah, I would second that, Sherry. I think if we're working with campaigns and a campaign is doing a SWOT analysis, certainly a weakness that is pretty common is the lack of visibility and lack of awareness. We internally might think, okay, we know the 10 key values, we know the 4 pillars, we talk amongst ourselves, and it's quite common, it's like part of our world. But when you're doing a SWOT analysis, you need to think about the broader world, how the community sees you. And very often, it surprises me to this day, but it shouldn't, because we know what the mainstream media is like, we know what the narratives are. But for many people out there at the supermarkets that we canvass at, or the doors that we knock on, you might be the first Green Party person that they've come across. They might not really know what the Green Party is. So we need to be prepared. We need to acknowledge that that is a weakness of many of our campaigns and develop strategies to address that. So excellent point. Anything else from anybody else? Okay, so if you're talking about a campaign, Jesse or others who are supporting campaign, do a SWOT analysis. And we'll, of course, the CCC help you with that.
Absolutely.
Anything else before we go into the next section?
Can I just say,
Yes.
I agree with it. I think the main problem we have is visibility. And what do we stand for? Is it just ecology or the environment? And last month, I did a 2-day stint at the community college. They have sponsored a voter registration days for 2 days, and all the parties are represented: the Libertarian, Green Party. I represented the Democratic and Republican Party. Republicans didn't show, obviously. But the main thing I had was a card that had our 10 values on one side and the 4 pillars on the other. It was like 3 by 6. And
Excellent.
I was able to give out 100 of them or so to educate these kids that, and I always said, this is your party of the future. And at least they took it with them and they read it and they educated themselves. And I think that's one thing we're missing. People don't understand, especially the part about not taking corporate money. I think that's incredibly important to this younger generation.
Right. No, outreach is important. There's so many, like, either, you know, graduates or students who are coming of voting age. Usually the Democrats and Republicans are very good at getting out there. Naturalization ceremonies, when new citizens are being, you know, made citizens. The Democrats and Republicans are out there with their tables ready. They come out the door and here's your voter registration. So as much as possible, we need to be there too, to let people know that, that we're there. Sherry, I saw your hand up again briefly.
No, that's just a thumbs up to what Terry was saying.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's
good.
not raising my hand. That's just saying, go Terry.
That was a facilitator snafu. Okay. Good. All right. Any Holly, let's go on to the next, back to the deck, and we will continue. Next section is on the budget. So before we get there, I'll say not every campaign spends money, but those are usually the campaigns in very small towns for like an office where there might just be a few hundred votes. Beyond that, probably every campaign is going to want to have a budget. And so, you know, why have a budget? Well, it's your plan. It's how you, it's a state of how much money you expect to raise and how much money you expect to spend. It's, you know, both sides of that. It also helps to avoid, it helps you to avoid those last minute decisions. Something comes along and says, oh, it'll only cost you $200 or $100 to do this. Why don't you do it? If you have a budget and a framework, you have a way to evaluate that. So you're not always, not every financial decision needs to be agonizing, an emergency, or stop you from doing other things. It actually gives you cover for expenses that you don't want to make. If somebody says, oh, I think you should spend $500 on this, you know, idea of mine, you might, rather than say, oh, I don't think that's a good idea, you can say, oh, I don't have the budget for that. I'm sorry. So it gives you a little bit of cover for that. It helps you with your decision making for sure. What you had to have an idea of what you will spend money on and what you won't spend money on. It shows donors you're serious. If you have a budget, it's easier to raise money because you can tell your donors exactly how you're going to spend the money that you raise. That's a pretty typical question. If you're out there fundraising, people will say, well, what will you use the money for? And having a budget will give you an idea of exactly that, how much money you need for posters, how much money you need for certain advertising, how much money you need for, you know, whatever expenses you have there. The more you can articulate what your budget is used to spend on, the easier it'll be for you to convince people to give you the money that you need. Let's go on to the next page. So, you know, when you develop the budget, you work with, you know, going back to your goals and your end game. What's, you know, keep that in mind. What are you running for? You know, a large office? Are you running for a small office? You know, what's the purpose is to achieve your goal. So you go back to your goal. You go back to your all the things that you mapped out as far as, you know, why you're running, to help you to determine the budget. And, you know, what do you need to have happen on or by election day to meet the goal? and what do you need to get, and how much will things cost, and what you need to do to accomplish your goals. So you develop your budget with these things in mind. And one more page until we get to talking about the budget. Okay, so there's big expenses and there's small expenses, and it depends on the kind of race you're running. If you're running for over a large district for a higher office like a state rep or legislator or Congress, you're going to have a lot more expenses and needs than you will if you're running for city council in your small town. So you can bucket the expenses in terms of low, medium, and high tier. Not every campaign is going to pay staff. Not every campaign is going to pay for office space. Printing, most campaigns will do some printing. Design, maybe yes, maybe this would be like a professional designer to do logos and graphics. Rent of space, technology, advertising, ballot access. Some states have filing fees where you have to pay a certain amount to get on the ballot. There might be some legal requirements, and also paying for events that you're going to run. So these are the different categories of expenses that can be foreseen and budgeted for. Let's go back to the group, Holly, and let's see if there's any questions about budgeting. Questions or comments about budgeting? Doug Larry.
Yeah, if I might, Scott. One of the ways to use a budget is to shop for in-kind donations. Some of my largest donations have not been cash, and yet they have been significant. We had one donor who had some prime real estate that wasn't getting sold and was willing to put us in so long as we illuminated the place and made it look alive. And so we were able to get the building for a fairly long period of time in an important campaign year. And he was concerned with our utility usage, so we offered to, fund a good amount for utilities, but we got, 2,500 square feet for $400 a month. That's a gift on Main Street, So plus utilities, but
absolutely.
Sometimes if your budget lists things you want, some people will have the things you want or the skills you want, but not cash. Our problem in that particular case was the state limited donations to $2,000 a person to a town committee, and he was donating what was market value of $4,000 or $5,000. So we had to actually make sure we paid in enough to accept his donation, so that he stayed under 2,000 and his wife stayed under 2,000, and we wrote it up as if they had both done so. And so those things aren't common, but that was our second best year ever, because we were on Main Street for 6 months in an excellent location ahead of time. And so I pointed out mostly because sometimes when you're thinking cash, you think you don't have enough. And when you think budget, often it helps to have that low, medium, and high. Show people the high and spend the low until you have it.
Right. No, that's a good point. So the budget can say, we want to, we're budgeting X for like some, office space. We don't have it yet, we're fundraising. Well, maybe somebody has that space rather than having the cash that would allow that. So excellent point.
Another example of an in-kind donation, that same year when we got that excellent office space, we had a donor who contributed use of 2 brand new computers, fairly high end for Excel use. Now, he got them back after the campaign, and that was complicated to count for. But that was an excellent in-kind donation. He bought computers that were new, and he essentially got them back when they were 6 months old. And so once we figured out how to report that, which took a little bit.
Maybe it was.
But that was excellent because these computers were better than what most of the people had. And so the office became a place where people came to do party stuff and other stuff. It became a bit of a hangout. And that was useful to us. So that's an example of aim high and see what happens. Practically, it's very embarrassing if you aim high, spend high, and somehow hope you will catch up with the money. We had one candidate do that this year in Connecticut, and it was astounding. Just the expenses they thought they'd somehow be able to cover, but months and months in, they still hadn't done so. And it's like, at some point, you have to cut your expenses there. Got embarrassing for the party. Just an excellent candidate, just didn't have the fundraising to support the staff salaries they were imagining they could pay. And naturally, these people were former Democrats who thought money grows from corporate trees. Yeah, and we're a bit surprised that we didn't do things that way.
Excellent. No, I think that's an excellent point for the, so in your budget, you can certainly, expect to achieve some of your budget items from in-kind contributions like that. Let's go on to the next, Polly, back to the deck and to the next slide, which is about assembling your campaign team. The next one. Great. So again, depending on the size of your campaign, these are the different players who could be involved in a campaign. If any money is being spent or even any in-kind contributions are being accepted, you almost always will need to have a treasurer that is separate from the candidate. And that treasurer needs to be well-versed in campaign finance laws of your state. And that treasurer can take the webinar that we did last month, for example, on being a treasurer. It's probably the most important position for a campaign other than the candidate, him or herself, because it's critical that the treasurer do the job of recording donations and recording expenses and recording in-kind contributions in compliance with applicable state laws. And every state is a little bit different on that. So if your campaign is going to have any kind of budget for fundraising and spending, then you need to make sure you have a very good treasurer who is reliable. That's just very critical. Campaign manager is the other critical person for larger campaigns. A small campaign, if you're running for, city council in your village of 300, you might not need a campaign manager. But if you're going beyond that, you want somebody to sort of, take the lead, not only of the campaign, but take the lead for you in some cases. When I ran for local office, select board in my town, I didn't have a campaign manager, and that was fine. But when I ran for state representative, I did have a campaign manager, and I did that twice. And I'll just share 1 year, without naming names, I had a campaign manager who I found I was having to do all the managing for. I was like, hey, did you remember this event? Hey, do you remember this? And, and that actually, probably, resulted in worse results for my campaign because I was having to manage the campaign manager. And that wasn't fun at all. The other time I ran, I had a campaign manager who managed me, and that was wonderful. That was somebody who had a key to my house, who made sure I was awake in the morning by coming into the house and saying, hey, Scott, you have to be at this event at 7:30, or you can't go out for a beer now because you have to be, somewhere else. So a campaign manager is kind of in charge of everything about the campaign, including you. And the more the campaign manager manages you, and the less you manage the campaign manager, the much better off you're going to be. So obviously these top two positions are going to be really, really critical if your campaign is large enough for these. You also need somebody to coordinate your volunteers, give them where they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to do. You might even have somebody who's fundraising. Oftentimes it's the candidate themselves, but if you're larger, you might have somebody assist with that. Media and press relations, technology guru, office manager if you're big, and even scheduler, someone who basically has your calendar and puts you where you need to be. But these are the components of campaign teams that can be particularly successful. And let's go back and let's hear from people about their experience with different campaign teams. Jesse, I'm going to put you on the spot again. When you ran last year, did you have a campaign team? And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I started off initially, it was literally just me and two other people. And eventually it started growing a lot more larger. Of course, I always had my family and a couple good friends, but it was about two of us. And at the end of it, we had about 6 on a bad day and then a dozen volunteers on a good day. And that was purely off of like the whole organic promotion on social media, word of mouth, and just literally talking to individuals one by one. And just even seeing the whole like breakdown of every individual's assignment and duty helps give me a lot more clarity on where I can focus people's strengths to better utilize them during my campaign and everything. And I did have a question. So
oh yeah, did you manage your own campaign?
Correct, yes.
Council, that's
Absolutely.
usually the case. Yeah. Now, what was your question?
So how would we go about recruiting potential team members, and like what methods have been successful in the past for that?
Good question, because you're asking a lot. when people volunteer for a campaign, a lot is being asked of them. So I'll open it up to others to chime in, but I'll say that the networks that you already have, the chapter of Green Party members that you might already have, family and friends and networks, of course. And I'll just say it grows. The more active you are a candidate, the more people see you as, a serious candidate in the community. It does get easier. But you might find in the beginning that people aren't really sure why you're running, getting back to the why and all these things that we've talked about before, then it might just be, oh, well, sure, I'm happy to help Scott out, but gosh, between you and me, why is he doing this? I don't, if those kinds of answers are answered already, then you'll find it become organic is the right word. It can grow organically. People put things on Facebook and social media and ask for people to sign up off of a Facebook page. So you might get some good people that way, but you're likely just to get people who maybe clicked once and then they went on to something else.
Okay. I really appreciate it. I definitely agree with everything you said. Absolutely.
Holly, Charlene, I see your hands up on this matter, on this subject.
I would mention is if you've ever done campaign work and served in a particular role, you're likely to get asked again. Now, I don't know the population size of your place. Iowa City is not huge, not tiny, but I served as campaign treasurer once. And once you do that, circles will recommend, oh, this person did this, and so you're going to get asked again. So you might ask your network of friends, do you have somebody you would recommend as a treasurer? if they know if someone is, oh, this person did a great job in coordinating my volunteers, you can put out little blurbs of, you know, what would be expected of that job too. So someone doesn't, you know, who's done this or has an idea of what it is. But if you've run before, if you know people who have run for office before that are in your political camp, they may be able to recommend somebody that would be good for your team. Over.
Doug,
Thank you.
I've been working this issue already this year. I start in about December. Because a candidate in Connecticut can petition beginning in January for ballot access. So I start nagging people just after the ballots get cold in November. And basically I look for, do you know people who might be interested? Who should we be talking to? Is there somebody I should be aware of? And I'm not necessarily yet demanding a candidate, because sometimes I might get 3 or 4 and I don't want to have promised all 3 of them that they can run. But I do want to know, who have we missed? Who do you know that's a rising star, or somebody studying poli-sci or studying accounting? Often some of the best staff are the ones who most don't want to be a candidate. You know, I started this session by saying that I'm not the ideal candidate because I'm good in the back office. And so in reverse, that sometimes you're looking for candidates who are not necessarily ideal volunteers, but they're articulate, they're impassioned, they're tireless, etc. And then for the people who realize they're not that person, well, you could help by donating. You could help by donating your time and your skills and your resources and your stuff. You can support people a number of ways. And I try to have that, in a sense, first before I go pushing hard for who's going to be a candidate. I want to know who's welcome to hear from us again or wants to hear from us again. But first I need to know, what can we offer the candidate? So as a backroom guy, you know, my focus is trying to solve some of this stuff before a candidate appears, because acquiring a good candidate means you're asking somebody to give up a year of their life. You know, they may still be able to hold a job, but just barely. And for young people in particular, that's a tough thing to do. It takes a special person to have that much energy. You know, they probably shouldn't have a dog or a kid. You know, there's just so much you can get done in a year. And so I think it takes planning. But if you plan far enough ahead, like Jesse sounds like he's got basically a 3-year plan. Well, that gives you enough time to, heck, you already know who the candidate is. You have an advantage there. Building the team, you've got time to listen to, what are people good at? Which of them have been actually successful at it? Who has successfully raised money, not just willing to raise money? One way you can do that in some states is to find out who's been treasurer for other small candidates before. In Connecticut, we can go to the State Election Enforcement Commission and look up in their system all the financial reports of candidate committees and party committees, and find out, well, who was the treasurer of those, did fairly well, but might still want to do it again. Particularly the ones who got, 5–10%, but didn't get elected. Sometimes those people had some pretty good staff to get that kind of number.
Yeah.
And if you can find out who that staff is, first by finding the treasurer and the chair, and say, we're always interested in talent, what can we share?
Another source could be, there's advocacy groups that are active in your area around an issue that is one of your issues.
Of course, yes.
Likely find people who would be more than willing to step up and work on your campaign. I'm just going to close this section with one more plug on campaign team. Don't forget social media, even if your race is relatively small. And I, for one, even though I hate Elon Musk and I hate all the things that are going on with Twitter and everything, I'm still an advocate for a candidate using Twitter at this juncture and other social media as well, just because so many of the people out in the community and in the media and in the political landscape across the ideological spectrum, they're there. So I actually never used Twitter until I became a candidate. And I had to be coerced into doing so by my campaign manager. And she was absolutely right. I said, well, the voters aren't on Twitter. It's just a small local race. Nobody is. But the reporters who covered the beat all were. The reporters who covered the beat for the local newspaper, for the independent newspaper, for public radio, for whatever, for commercial radio, they were all there. And one of the first places that they would go to find out about my campaign was Twitter. So even though we all hate Elon Musk, even though we all wish there was something better out there, I encourage all candidates to put some effort into developing social media, Twitter more than anything else, until something better and more universal comes along. The coordinated campaign committee also has a Twitter account, and I'm one of the main tweeters on the CCC. So we follow candidates. So if you have a Twitter account and we follow you, we will help by retweeting and promoting. But people in your localities who are influencers, media influencers and others, they're likely to be on it as well. So I do encourage that. Any further question or comment? I see, Doug, your hand is up again. Or maybe it's, maybe that was
It was
from
still
before.
up. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, now it's down. Okay, good.
Scott,
Let's go. Yes?
Starling,
Hi, Starling.
I wanted just to mention kind of a word caution. If you raise enough money where you could be paying, some staff members, your manager or some other campaign workers, just make sure that what you promise your workers is what you actually pay them. We had a case here recently with a candidate in Washington where really did not keep track of that, ended up saying he would pay 17, 16-year-olds a certain amount of money, and then it never followed through and it ended up destroying his campaign. He had to shut it down. So if you promise money, put it in writing, be aware of the child labor laws in your state and follow them to the letter. Because, often our campaign workers are younger people because they got time and energy, but don't take advantage of them. Not that any of you would, but just make sure you're aware of all that.
Yeah, that was unfortunate, and thank you for that word of caution. Yeah, money, it's easy to trip over money. Either easy to trip over money internally, it's easy to trip over money externally. When I ran, I nailed my creditor for a campaign finance violation. He got fined $250. Fortunately, I did not get nailed. But we can use the finance laws to our advantage, but they're also a threat. So you do have to be careful with that. And if you are paying your staff money, you need to put things in writing, and also just make sure that your budget and your fundraising actually does allow that, because if anything backfires in that realm, it can be really messy and things can derail very quickly. Okay, let's go on to, I'm going to go very quickly because we're kind of needing to wrap up pretty soon. But if we go back to the deck, I'll just point to the couple pages we have for events. Events are obviously campaigns run events and should be running events all the time to get their message out. The first announcement, of course, is the rule of thumb is that you're almost guaranteed a place in the media when you announce and when you either, and then whether you, if you either drop out or win. Those are the 2 times you're guaranteed some press coverage. But other events that you do obviously are going to help promote the campaign visibility. We don't have a lot of time left for this. Perhaps we'll do another webinar soon on different events that can be done. So Holly, I'll ask you to go forward to the next slide, which is the next events page. Kickoff events are, of course, some of the big, one of the first things you might want to do if you want to have some flash and splash with your kickoff. You might want to consider having an event somewhere. But we're not going to spend a lot of time on this because of time issues. So let's go forward to the next couple of pages. We're just ending here. We wanted every candidate in this webinar to walk away today with a to-do list of what your campaign is going to do. We're not going to do that at the moment because online and live, we have only one candidate in the room, and I don't want to put him on the spot any more than I have already. But this webinar is being recorded for distribution to others later on. It will be on our website. So if you are a candidate who's been following this webinar online on this stream, please use this opportunity to walk away from this webinar with the list of 5 or 6 things that you're going to do that you learned from this. And with that, I'll just call this an end to today's webinar, and I'll read our closing remarks. And here's some samples on here as well as things you can do, but I'm not going to speak to this. Holly, if you can exit the screen share, I guess I will open the floor to any final questions before I read our very, very brief closing remarks. Hopefully.
Is the slide available on the CCC website?
It will be, yes. Once the recording is finished and it gets to David Duden, it'll be put on our website so that people can follow.
The slideshow will be part of the recording or also a separate?
Yes. So yeah, it should be. It's just what we've done in Zoom. It'll be there. The slideshow will be there.
As a separate piece or as part of this whole thing?
I think it's just part of one thing. You click on and you watch it. If anybody wants a copy of the deck, I can send it to anybody. Yeah. Holly, did you want to say something?
Yeah, the slide deck is actually there by itself, and you can go in there and you can find Campaign 101 and you can find that. And then the recording will also be there with the slide deck on it.
Yeah. The one we use today is a little bit modified from what was there before. We keep an archive. The CCC keeps an archive of every webinar. And there are other similar Campaign 101 items on the website. Robin and I did adjust this one a little bit to meet the needs of this particular day. So it'll look a little bit different, but this and all the others will be there. So now for my closing remarks, which I promise will just be a minute. This webinar is now concluded. The Coordinated Campaign Committee produces monthly webinars on various topics. Next month, on May 9th, the committee will offer a campaign materials webinar, which helps candidates decide what materials they will need to produce to support their campaigns. On June 13th, in 2 months, we will be doing a Green Wave event. And Green Wave events are webinar formats that we do a few times a year where the focus on candidates that we have vetted and selected to give them airtime. So that'll be June 13th. Some of the promising candidates from around the country running here and now at this time will be profiled on June 13th. And please again, consider supporting this committee. Consider becoming a monthly sustainer to the Green Party of the US and making financial contributions direct to the candidates that you support. We in the Green Party do not take corporate or lobbyist funds. So support from individuals who share our values is absolutely essential. And I want to thank you all again for being a part of the webinar, for those of you here with me now and those of you who will be watching in the future. I want to wish you all the best and thank you very much. Now we will stop.
Thank you.
Good luck,
Okay.
everybody.